At this age, I do not have much to prove anymore. I just want to feel like I am still a man. That was what Ernesto told me as we sat outside a small medical clinic in Davao. He is 67, retired from a life spent working on ship engines, a man who raised 3 children and now proudly watches his grandkids play in the yard. But at night, Ernesto barely sleeps. He wakes up 2 or 3 times to urinate. He says there is this constant pressure below his stomach, a dull ache, an urgency he cannot ignore. Traveling has become uncomfortable. Staying at someone else's house is embarrassing. Even intimacy with his wife feels more like a burden than a blessing. He looked at me with tired eyes and said something that stayed with me. I don't know how to begin. I just feel like I am not myself anymore. And I understood him. Not because I am a doctor, but because I am a man too. And I know there are certain things we don't really talk about, not even with our best friends, especially when those things happen down there. Ernesto is not alone. There is also Jorge. He is 62, used to serve in the Navy, tall, strong, the kind of man whose presence fills the room. One morning, he woke up and found he had wet himself in his sleep. He thought maybe it was just part of getting old, but the doctor said otherwise. Jorge had an enlarged prostate. But what shook him the most was not the diagnosis. It was what caused it. You see, there is something a lot of men do, quietly, regularly. Something we have been told is harmless. Some say it helps with stress. Some say it is healthy. But very few of us know what it really does to us after we turn 50, 60, 70. I am talking about daily masturbation. Now, before you roll your eyes or brush it off, hear me out. I am not here to shame anyone. I am not even saying it is bad. I am saying we need to understand what really happens to our bodies when a habit becomes a pattern, and when a pattern becomes a silent cause of damage. A doctor once told me this: the prostate is like a muscle of memory. It reacts to repetition. Think about that. Every time we repeat a physical act, especially one linked to hormones, blood flow, and nerves, our body remembers, and it starts to change. At first, those changes are invisible. Slight inflammation, a bit of discomfort. Then it becomes habitual. A slow buildup of tension in the pelvic area, minor swelling, interrupted urination, difficulty sleeping. These are not isolated problems. They are signs, warnings. The issue is that most men do not connect the dots. We think it is just aging. We blame it on the bladder or on stress. But sometimes the real culprit is that one habit we have had since we were young. I know what you might be thinking. Is there actual proof? Or is this just another old-fashioned opinion? That is what I used to ask too. Until one day I met a retired American urologist, 71 years old. He handed me a stack of printed studies and said, "Most doctors do not talk about this, not because they disagree, but because it is too personal, too uncomfortable." One study in particular caught my attention. It was about the effects of frequent ejaculation on the health of the prostate after the age of 50. The conclusion was subtle, not dramatic. But it said this: clearly and repeatedly activating the prostate every single day over long periods, especially without full rest and recovery, can lead to chronic congestion of the gland. That word stuck with me. Congestion. Like traffic. But inside your body. Imagine something trying to function while being constantly activated, constantly flushed with blood, constantly forced into performance. No time to rest, no time to reset. But here is the thing. Most of us never realize this until it is too late, because the damage is silent. It builds over time. 10, 15, 20 years. One small action, repeated endlessly, without awareness. That is why I am sharing these stories now. because I know how it feels to wonder why things down there are not working the same way, to feel less like yourself, to feel a little embarrassed, a little confused, and very alone. But you are not alone. Not at all. What happened to Ernesto, to Jorge, to me, might already be happening to someone you know, maybe even to you. And before I tell you exactly what changed for us, and what might change for you too, I need you to understand something critical about the male body after 60. Something that almost no one talks about. Something that, if ignored, leads to one of the most common yet avoidable conditions for older men. This is where everything starts to turn. Ernesto told me that every night he had to wake up 2 or 3 times just to go to the bathroom. But what truly bothered him wasn't the lack of sleep. It was the feeling that his bladder was never really empty, like something was stuck. He would stand there, lights off, silence all around, and still feel the pressure. It made him anxious. It made him tired. But more than that, it made him feel old. Unwanted. He told me one night. He counted. He stood by the toilet 7 times in 6 hours. Nothing but dribbles. No peace, no rest. That alone is already hard. But what made it worse was what happened the next day. He was walking up the stairs to his 2nd-floor apartment, and suddenly, halfway up, he felt lightheaded. Weak. His heart didn't race, but it felt like his legs had lost their strength. He sat down on the steps, alone, silent, embarrassed. Now here is where things get deeper. You see, when men hit 60, the body doesn't just slow down. It begins to reroute its energy. The prostate, a gland about the size of a walnut, starts to grow. That in itself is not a disease. It is biology. The body assumes less testosterone is needed, so it shifts its balance. But the problem is, as the prostate grows, it begins to press against the bladder and the urethra, the tube that carries urine out. It's like stepping on a garden hose. Flow slows down. Pressure builds. Even when there's nothing left inside, your body still feels the urge to go. That is why so many older men feel the need to urinate all the time, but never feel relief. It is not the bladder's fault. It is the prostate's silent expansion. But there's another layer that most people don't mention. Daily stimulation, especially the kind that comes with prolonged sexual habits, including daily masturbation, can keep the prostate in a constant state of activity. The muscles stay tense, the blood vessels remain engorged. And over time, that doesn't lead to health. It leads to fatigue, inflammation, and in many cases, premature wear. One urologist I spoke to put it this way: your prostate is not a machine. It wasn't designed for daily output past a certain age. The overuse might not hurt at 30, but after 60, it's like revving a classic engine every single day and never changing the oil. That hit me hard, because no one ever explains it like that. And yet, I saw it play out over and over. Jorge, my Navy friend, mentioned something else that stayed with me. One day, he looked at his wife during breakfast. She handed him his pills, just like always, but this time she didn't smile. She looked tired, not angry, not cold, just tired. And he realized something deep and painful. Her eyes no longer held desire. They held pity. That was the moment he knew he had to change. The truth is, testosterone levels start to drop slowly after 40. That's natural. But in today's world, stress, processed food, alcohol, lack of movement, they all speed up the decline. And when testosterone falls, the prostate often tries to compensate. It grows, but it doesn't grow strong. It grows problematic. Then, when a man tries to keep up his old habits, like masturbating every day as if he were still 25, the prostate, already inflamed and congested, takes the hit. That's when things get serious. Weak streams, hesitation, dripping, incomplete voiding, erectile issues, even pain in the lower back or thighs. These are all symptoms not of aging alone, but of stress, constant, silent stress, on an organ that rarely gets a break. Ernesto told me that one night, after another frustrating bathroom visit, he stood in front of the mirror. Shirtless. He said he didn't recognize himself. His belly hung over slightly. His eyes were sunken, his skin was pale, and his manhood barely moved. He broke down, not because of vanity, but because something deeper had changed, something invisible, but sacred. He felt he had lost control, not just of his body, but of his identity. I asked him what his doctor said. The doctor didn't mock him, didn't roll his eyes. He looked at him, calm and firm, and said, "If you don't change within 6 months, this becomes chronic. And when it becomes chronic, there's no way back." That sentence stuck with Ernesto like a bell that would not stop ringing. He told me that night his wife climbed into bed first. She didn't say anything. She just turned her back to him. It wasn't angry. It was just silent. The kind of silence that says everything. And that, more than any diagnosis, made him realize something had to change. But here's the important part. He didn't give up. He didn't just accept it. He started writing down everything he ate, everything he drank, his habits, his sleep. He began searching, watching, listening. And the first thing he changed wasn't some miracle drug. It wasn't surgery. It wasn't expensive. It was something sitting in almost every man's kitchen. And what he discovered after that was something that most men over 60 will never hear from their doctor. The first thing Ernesto changed wasn't a pill. It wasn't some expensive supplement or fancy program. It was his morning. Every day, before anything else, he started with one small glass of warm water and a single pomegranate. He called it his reset. Not because he believed in magic fruit, but because he wanted to do something, anything, that would help his body help itself. That small red fruit, rich in antioxidants, helped improve blood circulation. He had read that pomegranates naturally increase nitric oxide levels, which help dilate blood vessels and reduce internal pressure, especially in the pelvic region. For him, it was not about instant results. It was about giving his body a chance to breathe again. Then came the second change. He stopped eating fried food altogether. No more greasy breakfasts, no late-night chips. He began cooking his own meals with more leafy greens, tomatoes, onions, and beans. He added pumpkin seeds and oysters twice a week, both high in zinc. Why zinc? Because by age 60, most men are severely lacking in it, and zinc plays a crucial role in maintaining healthy testosterone levels. He also made a decision, quietly, with no fanfare, to stop masturbating at night. Not because someone told him it was wrong, but because he wanted to see what would happen if his body was allowed to rest, truly rest, without that nightly tension. Within 30 days, the changes were not drastic, but they were real. He slept through the night for the first time in years. He only woke up once, around 5 a.m., and not out of urgency, just routine. He told me that his stream became stronger. His bladder felt like it emptied more completely. That old feeling of pressure, like something was always sitting low in his gut, began to fade. When he shared this with his doctor, the man smiled and said, "Your body is speaking again. You just gave it space to do so." The doctor had also suggested a natural herb, saw palmetto. It is often used in Europe as a gentle way to support prostate health. It doesn't shrink the gland instantly, but it helps reduce inflammation and eases the tension around the urethra. Combined with a healthier diet and reduced stimulation, it gave Ernesto the balance his body had been missing. Here is why these steps worked. Pomegranate boosts nitric oxide, which improves blood flow. That is critical for not only sexual function, but also for reducing congestion in the prostate. Lycopene, found in cooked tomatoes, helps reduce prostate inflammation. Zinc supports hormone balance and protects the glandular tissue from stress. And stopping daily masturbation? That allowed his pelvic muscles to relax and his body to redirect energy toward healing, not constant stimulation. This was not about giving up. It was about choosing restoration over repetition. And then came something unexpected. Ernesto looked in the mirror one morning, about 5 weeks into his new routine. He said his face looked brighter. His shoulders were less tense. But what really caught him off guard was how he felt standing there. He felt like a man again, not because of arousal, not because of performance, but because he saw a version of himself that he respected, a version that had taken back control quietly, humbly. And his wife? She noticed too. One evening, as they both lay in bed, she reached for his hand, not out of duty, not out of habit, but with warmth. That moment to him was more powerful than any prescription. She saw him. He saw himself. And in that moment he realized something no one had ever told him. You do not need to chase your youth. You just need to respect your body as it is today and give it what it needs to work with you, not against you. This is not a miracle. This is biology. This is habit. This is choice. And here is what I want you to know right now. You don't have to change everything overnight. Start small. Start with 1 less cup of coffee after dinner. Replace it with a glass of warm water. Add half a tomato to your lunch, or a handful of pumpkin seeds. Try going 1 night without stimulation. Just 1. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Let your lower belly relax. 2 minutes. That is it. Let your body feel safe again. Let it rest. And if you feel something, some calm, some clarity, some connection, remember that this is your body speaking back. You are not broken. You are not finished. You are simply being asked to listen. And that is where everything can begin. You do not need to be young again. You just need to live with the strength you already have. Let that sink in for a second. You see, we have been told for so long that aging is a loss, a steady decline, a list of things we can no longer do. But that is only one side of the story. The quieter side, the one no one tells you, is that aging can also be a return to what truly matters: clarity, peace, self-respect. Because being a man is not about performance, it is about presence. And your presence, your stillness, your wisdom, your decision to take care of yourself, that is more powerful than any product or pill. You do not need permission to change. You only need a reason. And maybe today, this was your reason. If this video stirred something in you, that is already a good beginning. You do not have to overhaul your life. You do not have to throw away everything familiar. Just start small. Start with 1 honest question in the mirror. Start with a glass of water in the morning. Start with silence instead of stimulation at night. Whatever it is, start where you are. Because sometimes the smallest shift is the one that turns the whole ship. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply being invited to become more in tune with the man you already are. And if you happen to know someone, a brother, a friend, a father, who is going through something similar, do not keep this to yourself. Share it. Quietly. Respectfully. Because the truth is, many of us are going through these changes alone. And maybe we don't need to be. I made this video not for numbers or views. I made it because I wish someone had told me these things 10 years ago. Before the symptoms, before the shame, before the nights I spent wondering what went wrong. And if you see yourself in this story, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, not for attention, but to let others know they are not the only ones, that you're out there, listening, thinking, choosing. This is not the end of something. This might just be the beginning of something much better. You still have time, you still have strength, and most importantly, you still have the right to feel whole again.